Emirates just posted record profit, but that does not mean Dubai is safe. Here is what the headlines are not telling you. While Emirates is celebrating $6.2 billion in profit, the world's busiest international airport shut down twice in a single month. Ballistic missiles were flying over Dubai. A drone strike set a fuel depot on fire right at Dubai International. And at the worst point, more than half of all flights out of the Middle East were either canceled or grounded. More than 52,000 flights canceled, gone, just like that. The influencers on your timeline are still posting first-class cabin videos and pretending this region is paradise. But behind the champagne and the flatbeds, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum's biggest economic weapon is trying to fly straight through an active war zone it cannot control, cannot buy its way out of, and cannot simply reroute around. So let's talk about what is really going on. On the surface, Emirates looks untouchable. For the financial year ending March 31st, 2026, Emirates Airline reported a profit before tax of $6.2 billion. That is up 7% from last year. The Emirates Group as a whole, which includes the ground handling company Denata, posted $6.6 billion in profit. Revenue hit $35.7 billion for the airline alone. They are sitting on $15 billion in cash. That is the highest cash balance in the airline's entire history. They expanded their fleet. They added 15 new Airbus A350s. They have 367 aircraft on order, with deliveries running all the way through 2038. They are growing their workforce. They installed Starlink Wi-Fi across the cabin. They launched a $5 billion cabin retrofit program that is already halfway done. And they beat Delta. For the second year in a row, Emirates is officially the most profitable airline on the planet. When their chairman, His Highness Sheikh Ahmed bin Saeed Al Maktoum, stood up to deliver those results, he called them outstanding. And by the numbers, he is right. But here is what he also said in the same breath. He said, and I am paraphrasing, military activities between the U.S., Israel, and Iran are paused under a ceasefire agreement. We hope for a clear resolution soon. Paused. Not over. Paused. That one word is the key to this entire story. To understand why that word matters, you need to go back to February 28th, 2026. That is the day everything changed. U.S. and Israeli forces launched strikes against Iranian nuclear and missile sites. Iran fired back fast and hard. Within hours, airspace across the entire Gulf region began shutting down. Qatar closed first, then Bahrain, then Kuwait, then the UAE. Dubai International Airport, the world's busiest international airport for passenger traffic, went dark. Not once, twice. Emirates and Fly Dubai halted all operations. Etihad in Abu Dhabi did the same. Tens of thousands of passengers were stranded in terminals across the region with nowhere to go and no information coming. And it did not stop there. The UAE's air defense forces intercepted 549 ballistic missiles, 29 cruise missiles, and 2,260 drones. Those are not small numbers. That is a sustained, coordinated assault on Gulf airspace that lasted weeks. At one point, a drone strike hit a fuel depot at Dubai International Airport and set it on fire. The world's most glamorous aviation hub was on fire. Qatar Airways was hit the hardest. Between February 28th and March 24th alone, the airline canceled 4,929 flights. That is 89% of its entire scheduled service wiped out in less than 4 weeks. Qatar's airspace closed completely on February 28th. It barely cracked open again for limited cargo by March 7th. British Airways looked at the situation and suspended all flights to Abu Dhabi for the rest of the year. When a major European carrier walks away from a region for an entire year, that is not caution. That is a warning sign. Here is where the scale of this crisis really hits. More than 52,000 flights were canceled to and from the Middle East from the moment the conflict started. At the absolute worst point, more than 50% of all flights departing from Middle Eastern airports were either canceled or could not operate. Emirates, which normally flies to 152 cities across 80 countries, was down to just 75 destinations by mid-March. Etihad was flying to 70. Both called those schedules temporary. Both were still operating well below normal capacity heading into May. The numbers on the ground matched the chaos in the sky. Jet fuel, which is already one of Emirates' biggest costs, jumped to $109 per barrel on March 18th after Israel struck the South Pars gas field in Iran. That price spike threatened to push summer 2026 airfare up by 11% or more for passengers around the world. War risk insurance got even uglier. Multiple Lloyd's of London syndicates canceled their Gulf route coverage outright. The ones that stayed raised their premiums by anywhere from 50% to 500%. Not a typo, 500%. Air cargo rates went up 70% almost overnight. Supply chains that run through Dubai, including pharmaceutical cold chains, auto parts, and e-commerce shipments from platforms like Amazon, took a direct hit. And over 40,000 U.S. citizens had to be evacuated from the region as the conflict deepened. This is where the story gets complicated for Emirates specifically. The airline's entire identity is built on one idea: Dubai as the crossroads of the world. Every flight path, every route, every hub connection is designed around the fact that Dubai sits almost perfectly between Europe, Asia, and Africa. You land, you connect, you go. But that only works when the sky is open. When airspace closes, Emirates cannot just reroute around it the way a European airline might detour around a storm. The Gulf is not a detour. The Gulf is the route. With Russian airspace still off limits for many carriers due to the Ukraine war, the Europe to Asia corridor was already squeezed through the Middle East before this crisis even started. Aviation consultants described it this way: the region's air corridors are already concentrated, and every closure makes the congestion worse. Emirates carried 53.2 million passengers in the 2025-26 financial year. Overall capacity grew just 1% over the year. For any other airline, a 1% increase sounds like noise. For Emirates, it reflects the quiet reality that even a brief closure shakes passenger confidence fast. The airline's revenue model depends on premium passengers choosing Dubai as their hub over Singapore, London, or Frankfurt. The moment those passengers start wondering whether their connection through Dubai is safe, they start booking elsewhere. Money cannot fix that. Only stability can. Emirates is smart with money. Nobody is arguing that. They hedge their fuel costs years in advance. Their chairman confirmed they are locked in on fuel pricing all the way through 2028-29. When oil spiked to $109 a barrel in March, Emirates did not feel it the way smaller carriers did. But hedging fuel is the easy part. You cannot hedge a missile. You cannot hedge GPS spoofing. And you cannot hedge a war. In the days following February 28th, more than 1,100 commercial vessels and numerous aircraft near the Persian Gulf were hit by GPS spoofing within a single 24-hour period. That is when a system on the ground sends out false signals that make a navigation system show the wrong location. Commercial airliners were being dangerously misidentified. When you cannot trust your own navigation in active conflict airspace, the safest option is to not fly at all. And that is exactly what happened. Emirates is the strongest airline on earth by almost every financial measure. It has $15 billion in cash sitting in the bank right now. It has 367 new planes on order.
It has a chairman connected directly to one of the most powerful ruling families in the Gulf. But none of that stopped Dubai International Airport from going dark twice in 1 month. There is no purchase order for peace. There is no hedge against war. As of early May 2026, UAE airspace has fully reopened. A ceasefire between the U.S., Israel, and Iran is technically holding. Emirates is rebuilding its schedule. The CEO's press release calls it a return toward stability. And by all accounts, the airline is moving fast to recover. But listen to the exact language their own chairman used. He said, the military activities are paused. He said they hope for a clear resolution. He said the outlook for 2026-27 is being built on the assumption that the ceasefire holds. Hope and assumption are not a business plan. They are a prayer. Every major decision Emirates makes for the next 2 years, every aircraft delivery, every new route launch, every pricing model for summer travel is being built on a regional ceasefire that went into effect weeks ago and could collapse at any moment. That is the real pressure underneath the record profits. Emirates made record profit. That part is not in dispute. $6.2 billion for the airline, $6.6 billion for the group. The most cash they have ever held. The most profitable airline on the planet 2 years straight. Those are real numbers, and they tell a real story about how well run this operation is. But those same results were announced alongside a quiet admission that the final month of their financial year was a disaster. That 52,000 flights were canceled across the region. That Dubai's airport went dark under missile fire. And that everything going forward depends on a ceasefire holding in one of the most volatile regions on Earth. Emirates made record profit while Dubai faced airspace fear. The question is not what happened in 2025. The question is what happens if February 28th comes around again? And nobody at Emirates headquarters knows the answer to that.